We're going to talk about pouches today. Pros and cons, maybe a little bit heavy on the cons. That's because I'm a speech pathologist, and speech pathologists are not crazy about pouches. Now, we're not saying never to use them, but I want to give you the pros and cons and let you think about why they're such a hot topic. As a matter of fact, recently in the New York Times, there was an article all about pouches, and I was really excited to have my advice shared in that article. And I figure, you know what, when pouches reach the New York Times, it is definitely a hot topic. So let's talk about the pros and cons. First of all, pros. They are convenient. There's no prep required. They're easy. They're so great to just throw in your diaper bag, and you've got what looks like a healthy snack for your kids. And sometimes they're healthy and sometimes they're not. But let's get back to the whole idea here that there's no prep required. That's okay, but I just don't want parents to get dependent on that, because all kids, including those with feeding challenges that I'm working with on my caseload, benefit from being exposed to a variety of foods via food prep in the kitchen. You know, peeling carrots, snapping green beans, and using kid-safe knives to really get in and have fun in the kitchen with their mom and dad. They need to know what foods feel like, what they smell like, and what they look like. And that leads kids to venturing to taste those foods. So in exploring the sensory aspects of foods is what leads to adventurous eating. So make sure you're still doing that. I really want to encourage parents to keep kids involved in food prep, helping with mealtime, shopping, gardening, visiting farmers markets. Even now, even in this time of the year, we've got a farmers market here in Colorado that's open for a few of these sunny hours on the weekends. So still lots of good vegetables out there that the kids can explore. Just don't let the convenience stop the food exploration. Let's talk about another pro. Kids consume fruits and vegetables. That's a good thing. I'm all about that. But we don't want kids only consuming fruits and vegetables in puree form. We know for sure that purees offer a safe start for kids starting solids. And I like kids to start on purees in addition to self-feeding. But ultimately, we want to practice chewing and swallowing in whole form. Research shows babies who linger on purees are at risk for developing a feeding disorder. Let's talk about the compromise. I recommend to parents or caregivers that they just use them occasionally, maybe a few times a week at most. Unless a child has special needs and this is the only way that they can consume whole foods, then we really want to limit our use of pouches. You know, you can also buy, there's some little spoons that you can attach. Once you take the lid off the pouch, you can actually screw a little spoon onto there. And if you want to feed baby when you're on the go, maybe you're out at a park or whatever, using that spoon, I really want to encourage you to do that. You definitely can help them begin to put their mouth over the spout and begin to close down on it, but it's not the same type of skill that we look for in spoon feeding, where the kids really have to close their lips on the spoon and begin to suck off the spoon. A lot of people think that kids suck out of pouches, but the majority of the work is being done by the fingers. They're pushing food into their mouth rather than sucking it like through a straw. Okay, another pro. Less mess, right? Less mess. The thing is, as a feeding specialist, we want kids to get a little bit messy. There are times you need the kids to stay clean, so I get it. But less mess means less interaction with the sensory system. Pouches inhibit interaction with most of the sensory properties of food, and kids need to get messy to become adventurous eaters. They're programmed to explore with all their senses, and I'd rather that they didn't rely on sucking on a pouch unless they're going to grow up and be an astronaut. That's what I always say. So compromise is embrace the mess when you can and occasionally give a pouch when you can't. Here's another pro. They are quick. Man, kids can suck these down like that. That can be really an advantage when you're short on time and you just want to get a little nutrition into the kid before they run off to their gymnastics class. I totally get that. But in a lot of ways, they're sort of the next best thing to the drive-through, because It's really easy to get hooked on something you suck down so quickly. Another reason why kids get hooked on them really easily is because when you can consume calories in a puree form, especially if they're fruit-based, which most of these are, they're absorbed really quickly into the sensory system. And you'll get that sudden, I feel better, and then the cranky crash afterwards. That's because a lot of these contain a lot of apple juice and apple puree, but honestly, a lot of juice. And we know for sure that apple juice is quickly absorbed into our system to regulate blood sugar, but then we will crash afterwards because of that high carbohydrate load. Let's talk about a compromise then. I encourage my families to eat together at the family table with no screens and no pouches as often as possible. Tell the caregivers to reserve pouches for rare times when they really do have to eat on the go. Now, for kids who require tube feedings, who may be still learning how to eat orally, pouches can offer parents a convenient, quick solution, and they may actually end up using that pouch to help tube feed the child. I understand that completely. That's an exception to this. I want all of our kids at the table, no matter how they're being fed. But if kids are able to eat orally, let's leave the pouches in the pantry. All right. Another pro I often hear is they're so perfect in the car. I get that too. It's just that we have to be careful not to feed our kids in the car too often. They will actually become conditioned that the moment you put them in the car seat, they'll turn to you and say, I want a snack. Eating in the car seems to be a way of life nowadays, but eating in the car daily equates to not eating around the family table. So again, let's get back to as much eating at the family table as we possibly can, and just reserve these for when we absolutely need them. Research from Columbia University says that kids who eat at the family dinner table 3 times a week make better life decisions and are more connected with their parents. So there's a little motivation for all of us. The compromise. Offer the pouches as a healthy alternatives on alternate days when you aren't going to have family dinner every single night. So in other words, if you do any meal planning and you do that on a Sunday night, think about maybe planning for when you're going to use the pouches. I know it seems like an extra step, but it really does help to reduce the use of the pouch. Pouches are not great for the environment either, so we want to really keep them to a minimum. And then last pro that I want to mention is I always hear how these are so great for toddlers. One of the things I want you to consider is not to let your toddler walk around the house with a pouch in their mouth. When kids do that, they're very likely, because they're toddling, to fall on this hard plastic spout. And the American Academy of Pediatrics reports that the most common injuries treated in the ER involve bottles, pacifiers, and sippy cups. And these really are a similar tool with that hard plastic spout that's right in their lips. So always be seated when you have a pouch.